There's that great painting. I can't remember the name of it in French, but it's called "This Is Not a Pipe," and it's a painting of a pipe, right? And so many problems in businesses, right, are paintings of a pipe that you think, oh my gosh, this is a pipe. And it's absolutely not a pipe. It's a painting on a piece of paper of a pipe, right? And how do you get rid of that problem? You burn it and throw it in the trash, right? You don't need to handle it, or you do need to handle it.
Welcome to another episode of Prosper, the podcast of the Sioka Center, the entrepreneurship center at the Bush School of Business. We're the place where innovation meets personal vocation. I'm your host, Andreas Rebecca, joined as always by my colleague, Sioka Center Executive Director, Rebecca Teddy. We're pleased to welcome two guests today. I think that's a first. It's a husband and wife duo of Matthew and Elizabeth Marcolini. They are the Chief Human Resource Officer and the CEO, respectively, of Rose Roofing and Restoration, a company that went from early stages to 8 figures in revenue in just 36 months. Try to match that. They're also the co-founders of Marcolini Ventures, a firm specializing in the acquisition and development of lower middle market blue-collar businesses.
And Elizabeth is, in addition, the best-selling author of Bella's Gift, and coming in 2026, The Pocket Guide to the Works of Mercy with Ascension Press. And we had the pleasure of hosting Matt and Elizabeth at the spring meeting of our Family Business Consortium on campus at the Catholic University of America. And we couldn't wait to bring them to Prosper to share some of the things that they talked about there with our wider audience. So we're going to talk about blue-collar jobs and company formation and how you stay talking to each other as husband and wife when you are working together in a business. Matt and Elizabeth Marcolini, welcome.
Oh, Rebecca and Andreas, it's great to be here. Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for having us, and we're just excited to be here.
So let me start with a warm-up question that I always ask everybody, and I think this will be particularly interesting from the two of you, which is, what is the best thing that you're reading right now?
Oh, what a fun question. Matt is, I don't know how he reads as much as he does, but he reads a lot more than I do. So I feel like he's going to be the best person to answer this question first.
Looks like he has a couple of ideas.
For those of you who can't see us, he just reached under his desk and grabbed a huge stack of books.
So Matt, you're going to have to choose here, okay? Yeah, choose one, Matt. Choose one.
I'll choose the one of the business books, and I'm reading Go Giver right now. In addition to a few others, but one of our big principles at Rose is being a servant leader, right? And there's no task too big or too small of anybody. We named our company after Saint Therese of Lisieux, which is very important, right? And understanding the idea of the receptivity of the human soul and the inherent dignity of each person. And when we activate ourselves to receive an individual in the workplace, I think, and activate that mindset, that's really what I wanted to dive in more with that book, right? And how to give more. Because I think it sometimes can be hard when you're a leader. You're constantly pushing folks, right? And you want to be a servant more than you want to be one that's being served.
We'll have to put this in the show notes. Can you tell us the author again?
The Go Giver is...
Go Giver rather than Go Getter.
Yeah, Go Giver. A little story about a powerful business idea. Bob Berg and John David Mann.
Cool.
We'll put that in the show notes. Really cool. One of the things that shows right away is that you both have a liberal arts education, obviously. You learned to read in a fast way. Matt, I think you studied at Christendom, right? And Elizabeth, you are a UD graduate.
I am.
Like our very own Rebecca.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, which actually brings me to, I have to say then, as good UG graduates, that the book I'm reading, I was running through a book that was related to business. And I was like, actually, the book I have that's most related to business that I read recently is a spiritual read. It was called Humility Rules by Father Augustine Weta. Short treatise, a book that I read, and I actually made our whole leadership team read this. They are not all Catholic, but I said, I think we're a low ego team, and it's the only way I think to work really collaboratively together. And we read it and had some great conversations. It put some people in the hot seat. I think it put all of us in the hot seat.
It was really powerful.
It was. So that would probably be my strongest personal recommendation right now, whether you're a business owner or not. But I found a lot of fruit just in the concept of creating a humble workplace environment. I think we can all do it better. Certainly me first.
I'm glad you picked up and came and swung right back, because once Matt gave his answer, I moved on. But I'm glad you went back, and we'll put that book into the notes as well. And I think it's interesting. We can get to this in a minute, but it's interesting to have a mixed faith environment, which most of us have at our work, and so do you. And I'd love to talk at this about. But where I was going with the liberal arts education is, I find this so interesting, of having known you for a while, but then to think that you went into roofing. So you go do a liberal arts degree, and then you come out and you say, "What should we do? Hey, let's start a roofing company."
All I know
As a
is
logical
the only
conclusion.
human who lived closest to the person without original sin, born without original sin, is Saint Joseph, right? And I'm pretty sure he might have put on a roof or two, maybe, I don't know, along the way. So, so I think that was, something that we loved coming from kind of more ideological backgrounds and workplaces. Was Matt was in private equity before this, and owned a recruiting company, and neither of us had any background in construction, but I think what we knew was there was something really beautiful in being able to do something well and have it be finished. that was kind of a nice benefit as we walked into construction, that we make something better that needs to be improved, and there's like a tangible difference that we see in the fruit, which is really rewarding.
That's neat. I actually think, as a fellow University of Dallas graduate, the stereotype is that liberal arts degrees don't prepare you for much. Like the joke is, you get your degree and then the next question you ask is, do you want fries with that? That's the stereotype. And yet my experience has been that actually Washington, D.C. is filled with liberal arts graduates who are trying to make a name for themselves in the world of politics, trying to make the world better, but also a huge number of my own colleagues at University of Dallas turned out to be small business owners. There seems to be an actual preparation that the liberal arts gives you for being able to maybe walk and chew gum at the same time, and to be able to maybe have an appetite to do things. You think that's true, or am I making stuff up?
I think you're 100% right. I think that's one of the things that that drew me to Christendom. Right, I dropped out of high school, went to Christendom a year early, so I went and arrived at 17, and to a place. It was a really small school, and none of my family had ever been there before. And I was an only child. I had 4 half siblings, but I was raised as an only child, and was the fact that you're taught how to be a hammer instead of a nail, right? And you're taught how to think, and you're taught how to critically analyze problems. There's that great painting. I can't remember the name of it in French, but it's called "This Is Not a Pipe," and it's a painting of a pipe, right? And so many problems in businesses, right, are paintings of a pipe that you think, oh my gosh, this is a pipe. And it's absolutely not a pipe. It's a painting on a piece of paper of a pipe, right? And how do you get rid of that problem? You burn it and throw it in the trash, right? You don't need to handle it, or you do need to handle it, or like all of these things. And I think most especially, like, I know Liz leads our company in an amazing way, and she's just so humble and really embodies that virtue of humility. And I think it's one of the benefits and advantages to having a female-led business, right? Is that men don't feel like they have to compete with her, right? And just seeing that and understanding the idea of the virtue of humility, right, that we've been taught from our liberal arts education, is something that makes me really passionate as a big advocate of, like, it's not just, hey, you're going to go be a teacher, right, which is a wonderful and one of the noble vocations, right, or be a priest, right? You can do anything with it, right? You can learn anything. We built an 8-figure business by Googling things and looking stuff up on YouTube, right? And so it's really real.
I often, just to dovetail off of what Matt said, I always like to share this story anywhere and everywhere I can, because I have such a passion for people in this sphere, in this space, who are taught to be to love the Lord, who want to go out and, can think critically and build something or do something different, but are struggling with maybe, can I figure it out? I remember on the first call with we had a few investors, that were wonderful and helped us to start this company. And I remember being on a call with them, and they were talking about all things that I now deal with on a daily basis. But at the time I was like, just smiling and nodding, as they're mentioning things like EBITDA, and I'm writing them on a Post-it note under my computer to Google after. And I was like, man, am I going to be able to do this? I don't know. I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know how to do this, but it is amazing how I think, I always feel, for me, the journey of entrepreneurship has looked a lot like Peter on the water, but how if you have a sense of ingenuity and persistence and humility, like you're not too small to learn something new, it's amazing where you can go. I think if the Lord is pushing you there.
What was the actual impetus to go into roofing versus? I mean, you could have done other carpentry or so. What I'm trying to kick the tires off is there's lots of our listeners who are actually looking for business ideas, and they're aspiring entrepreneurs as well. Was this like you threw a dart or
No,
what?
it was pretty strategic. In 2020, the great COVID happened, right? And everything kind of went crazy. I had worked for a startup the year before, and the bond yields had flipped early in the year, which was interesting. In July of that year, so there was like a mini recession, and a lot of money was on the sidelines. It was a really interesting thing that a few people that I follow out of Stanford and Harvard were talking about. And then I kind of went down the rabbit hole and found these things called search funds and entrepreneurship through acquisition. And I really believe with the coming donor cliff, right? And the coming great wealth transfer, that's what they called it, that we have a great way to build up the church and to build up Catholics and everything. And so that was the dream, right? Is to build our own and go find it. Roofing itself, right? To get back to the actual question, it was almost an opportunistic market inside of our specific thesis. And so,
But you did this with a search fund.
we did not. We wanted to do that. In 2020, we tried to buy 4 different companies. We got outbid by all the big private equity subsidiaries of all the big PE guys, which was cool because we were right, and also wasn't cool because we were right, because they were all there. And about halfway through, my brother-in-law, who's a great friend from college, and he met his wife, Sarah Maria, who works with us at Rose too. He had been in the industry for 10 years. And he's like, look at roofing companies. We talked to a few, didn't find something that met the thesis. And we said, Paul, you've done this. Why don't we get you licensed? Right? And we did. And so he started working on that in November of 2020. And we incorporated January 19th of 2021. And we were off to the races.
That is so cool. And then tell us about, so that's Rose Roofing, and then you have this other venture also, Marcolini Ventures. Tell us a little bit about that, and were they both always in plan, or did one evolve from the other? What happened?
Rose was kind of the, subsidiary plan of Marcolini Ventures, right? And the idea was that we go buy one and then do it for 5 years, sell it, and then use that money to go sponsor somebody else, and then so on and so forth, right? And have them keep sponsoring other people and just build up the Catholic entrepreneurial world, right? To care for the poor and for the church. And so since Marcolini or Rose Roofing took off and became as big as it has, and is still continuing to grow, right? We've had 100% growth, over 100% growth each year for the last 4 years. We're focused still on Rose, but we help and invest in other blue collar businesses that are either getting started or working on their automations, like helping them professionalize these businesses that they're acquiring, right? We're working on a couple acquisitions right now on the West Coast with a group, couple Catholic guys, really, really awesome Harvard grads. And so it's a huge, huge market out there. And we're happy to lend our knowledge and our hands where we can.
Elizabeth, and you're taking part in that as well, on top of being the CEO of the roofing company.
Yes, I'd say Marcolini Ventures is definitely more of Matt's, I think, passion and gifting to share that advice. I'm much more focused day to day, I think, in my role on Rose. But I've done things more in just the advisory space, like maybe like less in the weeds, but I really do enjoy it and think in the future it's something that I feel passionate about, the ability to help and empower people to go and chase their dream. I mean, I heard once, and this just really stuck with me, that you're either going to spend your life building your dream or someone else's, and everyone gets to choose. And that kind of sticks with you. And I think that as Catholics in the world, we have an obligation to go out and make the world better in whatever way we can, right, to build the kingdom of God. And I think we're all called to do that very differently, but I think as entrepreneurs with that gifting, the calling can be a really interesting one, as you guys well know, in creating a workplace that's I don't know, that does things differently, presents a different place for human flourishing and achievement. And that's something that I felt very passionately about when we started Rose, was the professionalism aspect of this. And it's a funny, kind of line to walk, because some days it's like we're kind of a big family, like, like the Beverly Hillbillies all riding in the car. And then some days it's like, we're really working to improve systems so that in an industry that's pretty notoriously under professional, we are providing a very professional, reliable, good place to work.
That's the interesting thing. What this brings to mind, the reason why I'm super interested in actually the crossover between what you do, Elizabeth, like to head a company that grows 100% a year, which the furniture shakes when that happens.
You're
like
telling
you have
me,
to that
yeah.
that kind of growth. If somebody hasn't experienced it, that's like running down a hill and your legs can't keep up with your body. So that's the feeling of constant uncertainty. But you see, Elizabeth, what this brings is pattern recognition. I always have this conundrum when I teach, and because I don't come from the academic side of things. I come from the side of what you do, Elizabeth. Like, you run a company and you deal with doubling every year, or in high tech sometimes even faster. And it's not formulaic strategy that's going to fix it. It's experience and sweat equity. And what you end up having is almost like when you're a parent, that you see something from a mile away and somebody can stand next to you and they have no idea that this is coming. But you, Elizabeth, you are being trained in pattern recognition, that when you see a company that Matt is going to invest in or buy or do I guess it's a bit like a search fund. Your pattern recognition is going to be gold in looking at these companies. Have you found that, or do you feel it?
Well, it's funny. I had a moment this week where I won't get into the weeds, but I was in a conversation that 2 years ago was like a really stressful day, and it was just another appointment on my calendar this week. And I think God gave me the grace on, my drive home. I was like, man, that there are these glimmers where you see the progress of your muscle, right? That where you've lived enough life where all of a sudden the tidal wave actually looks like a kind of a baby pond before. But the only teacher of that is the tidal wave. And that's the hard part of, I think, learning, like you said, in that rapid downhill, crazy growth phase is I I had a Post-it note on my computer, for the first year, I think, plus, that we were growing this quickly. And it was just kind of every day was a new day, right? And I was talking to a mentor of mine and I was like, I just feel like there are answers out there that I don't have. I feel like that I should somehow know the right thing to do, right? And when I'm presented with a problem every day, that there's hidden knowledge I don't have, and maybe a book I haven't read that's going to teach me how to be the perfect CEO. And I'll never forget, I can remember his face. He leans in and he was like, I'm going to let you in on a secret. We are all making it up. And I think my head exploded in that moment, because I was like, what freedom was there in that moment to be like, okay, I have to do my best every day, use the tools that I was given from my life, my education, trying to be virtuous in my work, to be prudent, find the balance between, forward aggression and prudential conservatism, but also to kind of walk that tenuous relationship as best I know possible, knowing that miles down the road, I'm going to look back and be so much wiser for having faced the fear.
That's awesome. But since we have a pause, I'm going to nudge Andreas to take us to a quick break. and then we'll come right back and drill down on that.
Okay. So we're going to take a break, then come back to hear more of our conversation with Matt and Elizabeth Marcolini. Friends, if you're enjoying this episode, please express that by subscribing, leaving a great review, or maybe leaving a comment, question, or suggestion for a future episode. We'd love to hear from our listeners, your ideas, your comments, and we're entirely donor funded, so we rely on your support. Also, have you heard the Bush School at the Catholic University just announced and launched a brand new MBA? You should really check this out. You can see it at mba.catholic.edu or click the link in our show notes.
And with that, welcome back to our wonderful conversation with Matt and Elizabeth Marcolini. They are the heads of Rose Roofing and Marcolini Ventures, and we've been talking about how two nice liberal arts grads ended up in charge of two really important companies in the blue-collar sector of the industry, and how they're navigating exponential growth in over a quick period of time. I'd love to segue to something that you talked about at our Family Business Consortium in the spring, which is you guys have a really fascinating approach to kind of mission alignment and how you train the people who work for you. Can you talk a little bit about, first of all, what that looks like, and then also how you came up with it? Because speaking of, as we were right before the break, of just making stuff up, how did you develop that?
Well, Matt he and his department are really the geniuses behind that. So I'll let him speak to more of the content. But I think at a high level, we're a family-run business. We started this business with my brother-in-law, Paul, as Matt mentioned, and but we employ about half of my family and Matt's mom, and so we're about 80 people on the team in general, and I think that element of training, I want to just give that shout out to the family nature of what we do, because I think that's had a huge impact on how we view training and people here. Because it's a very collaborative effort. Like we all are very, I think, aligned in how we wanted to develop a program that was different, to provide content where no matter how long someone was with us, they were better for having been there. It was a pretty simple thesis that we weren't going to treat people as disposable. We were going to give them every opportunity to grow. What we found is whether or not they take it is, free will, but we want to provide as many tools as possible for human flourishing in kind of the context of what we do.
Yeah, I think that kind of the genesis of it came from a mentor of ours. We decided you see these big companies, right? Big corporate conglomerates, right? What do they do best is that they replicate themselves, right? The founders were able to replicate themselves and enlist people with the mission. And the only way to do that effectively is have a repeatable and effective scalable process that engages people over time. And so we built a system around training that teaches people we call it RISE, right? The Rose Institutes, and I can't remember what it is. We just like the name RISE and then made up an acronym for it. And has a bunch of Tolkien quotes, right? We have really great merch that comes along with it. And we made it something really fun, right? But it encompasses all factors of somebody's life, right? And that's what our mentor told us to use, and that he used in his business that he ran. And for that family that he ran, they ended up selling the business for multiples of billions with a B, right? And without his advice, the system we have wouldn't have been possible, right? And so we took his advice and incorporated the whole human, your business aspect of life, right? Your mental fitness, your physical fitness, right? Your spiritual fitness, right? We don't talk about specific things, right? It's all pre-evangelization at the end of the day. And I say this very publicly for folks, right? I respect them enough to let them know that I want them to be Catholic, right? Our two conference rooms are named Therese and Lisieux, right? We have Catholic statues and stuff everywhere you go, right? And so, but the idea is that it's pushing towards the common good, right? It's not something that is explicitly Catholic and is universal, right? And because people are going to be happier when they are function as an integrated human being, right? And when they're like working together with themselves, they don't have that cognitive dissonance of valuing something more that they shouldn't or whatever. They'll be more productive, they'll be happier, they'll be better mothers and fathers and sons and daughters. And if we can do that, right, we don't have to be in ministry to affect great change, right? If we build an army of 10,000 people across the country, right, that's the average family size is 4 point something human beings, right? That's an immense amount of impact over 10 years. So that's kind of the genesis and thought behind how we built that.
And this is an official program. It's the onboarding and the continuous training and everything that you then integrate with the tactical, like with the actual mechanics of training somebody for the roofing.
It
and
is,
everything.
yeah. We call
Correct?
it a cultural common denominator. It's a common language. It's our Rose vernacular is the RISE program. Families have culture, businesses have culture, right? And unless you create it intentionally, it just happens. And we wanted to be intentional in how we created ours. And so RISE is a 12-week program that is dedicated, as Matt said, to kind of different aspects of the human person. So there are performance metrics involved in that, to kind of continue on to the next level. So we ask something of them to kind of unlock the next chapter that they read. But we involve quotes from, I think we have quotes from all the way back to Plato up into, I think SpongeBob might have made it in there, but it's a wise gamut of wise philosophers.
So you're having roofers read Plato and other material, not the whole book, but you're basically doing almost like a personal improvement.
It's the
kind
liberal
of
arts in us. We couldn't help
reading
ourselves. We have 2 other formation courses that are for our sales leadership specifically. We're working to actually open them. In the past 6 months, we've been opening them to operational roles as well. We have a program called Top Squad, which is our middle management program, and then something called Titan. And in the Titan program, which is, the kind of our top leaders, we have them read 2 full books, one of which is I think it's the Odyssey and the Brothers Karamazov. They read them over 6 months, but we have discussion groups associated with them. Part of the course is they have to watch certain movies and listen to certain music, and there's the whole goal, is that it's cultural and practical. We have a lot of business wisdom, a lot of business books in Titan, but we also want to make sure that sometimes wonder and an experience of beauty and goodness, it triggers something, I think, in us that's more profound. And we all know this, right? The desire for more. And this is what we want for everyone who comes here, is to know truth himself. And I think the only way we do that is by kind of giving some good appetizers to help them get there.
So if that's how you set out the performance and you set goals and people perform, and the other side of culture is, of course, celebration. And can you give me some examples? How do you all celebrate?
Yeah, so one of the big things that we do every year is called the Rooftop Club. We took the company, everybody that qualified, to Austria this past year. We went to Salzburg and went and saw where Mozart was from, and saw these great cultural things of Western civilization in Austria. It was really amazing. And we also did the Sound of Music tour, because when in Salzburg, one has to.
One must.
And one must, yeah, exactly. And this next year, we're going to take everybody who qualifies, even our folks that work for us in Jamaica, right? They're able to qualify for it too. We're taking everybody to Rome, and we'll do tours there, and so they can see the cradle of civilization, right? It's a huge thing for us that, and they're really nice trips. We stay in 5-star hotels, eat 5-star meals, do the whole thing, because we believe that, if we truly are a societal organism, as Russell Hittinger says, right, then we ought to act as if we are one and do things together, right, and engage in that leisure together, right, and it strengthens the bond. And some of our best ideas that we've had this year came from the time in Austria, right, in that dedicated leisure time that wasn't just relaxing and doing nothing, right? But it allowed our brains to process, think about something different, right? Which allowed us to have better ideas about how to execute this year.
I love that. Tell me a little bit more, besides the good ideas. What do you think are the fruits of those kind of group trips?
Oh man, as Matt said, I think there's really almost too much to talk about on this call, but I think that living in community in your workplace, we spend a lot of our life with the people we work with. seeing them too in an environment, not just at like the company Christmas party, but when you have 5 days in a foreign city, you learn a lot about each other. And you learn what moves people, you learn what they care about, you learn what they're searching for. And I think that that as a leader is immensely valuable. I mean, aside from the cross collaborative effect of just experiencing that as peers, to watch your team go through that is a great teacher for you on how to motivate them, how to encourage them, how to hold them accountable. And I think that some of that, it can only be learned by the experience of existing with each other in a way that's not a conference room. I don't think we were meant to live like that, and so we want to, obviously we work very hard every day, and most of our life is that. But we want to provide occasions throughout the year to be with each other in a different way, and to provide an experience again to them of beauty and goodness. That's just something I'll leave you kind of this thought. One a guy on our trip had never left America, in Austria, and he he actually since moved on. Great partying. We were very happy for him. But he said two things on the trip. One when we were there, and one when he left. He told me, he said, "I never knew that the world could be this big." And we had a long conversation, Matt and him and I, just about like all that he was experiencing. And he was like, "I never thought I wanted to travel. I never wanted to see the world, but now I'm Googling things like who did that painting, or who, like, I'm listening to music I never thought I'd listen to, and I just feel like my world is different." And then when he left, he came into my office and he was like, "I want you to know, for the first time in my life, I had a job where I was a better person at the end of it than when I began it. I wasn't a better worker. I was a better person." And I think that those types of experiences help to have that, the second conversation.
It's a lot of it's very impressive how you're investing in human, like in humanity, in the person. Um, Let me just double click. So your growth is very impressive as a services company. To grow at 100% a year or more is no small feat. But I presume you're looking at this. Are you also innovating? Is there like a productivity growth, or is it just sheer acquisition of like volume?
It's a little bit of both, I think. I mean, we're doing a lot of things differently. I want Matt to speak more on like the automations and data side. I think he has done a lot of really great things with we have a full-time data and integration specialist who works for us. I don't know of another roofing company that does. So yes, we are trying to do things differently in the way we approach, our business, but we haven't acquired other companies. This is organic growth, and it's a lot of hard work. Um, but yeah, but I'll let Matt speak to more of kind of that interesting vein.
Yeah, and I think there's like some innovation there, but I think with the democratization of AI and its related technologies, with a little bit of Google searching and a lot of YouTube, a lot of people can do what we did, right? We saved over $250,000 last year, in like total cost of getting certain folks out of one system and then building a system that they can use for customers and everything like that, that then connects to our main database, right? And so driving efficiencies that way. We integrate into our recruiting practices. We use Claude quite a bit, the back end of Claude through the API. And for summaries and stuff like that, never doing things that a human should do, right? Of course, there's only some right now, with the way technology is, there still is quite a bit that you need to double check, right? And just making sure that like everybody's on the same page, and integrating communications and change management across the entire company. It's no small feat, right? Especially in silos, and especially when dealing with large sales teams and blue collar teams, because it's 80 folks, and that's not including the other subs that work for us and that are installing are between 4 and 10 jobs a day, right? And so utilizing that, and kind of like the idea of that automation can be done by anybody, right? That could be a whole thing that we talk about for 6 hours, right? We did a lot last year with that. So last year was the first year that we really moved towards the efficiency and automation side of things.
It's one of the things that I think I was going to mention earlier, that the benefit of the liberal arts education is it teaches you to think. And because the reason why I say that, the other thing, Elizabeth had this person leaned over to you and said, I'll tell you a secret, we all make it up as we go. The other secret, Matt, is that yes, it's possible to do this AI stuff, but the truth is people don't. There's a lot of great people could Google something and implement it in a company, but they don't, because they're thinking about it the wrong way. And they think that sheer volume and busyness is the solution to growth. And it isn't. So they don't take a step back. The average business person doesn't take a step back and say, okay, what's actually very important right now? And to recognize what you did last year, to say we can save $250,000 by just take a moment and fix this and just straighten out that for the productivity, because that's money that isn't just good right now. This is money that keeps on being saved. And while that sounds good afterwards, most small and medium-sized companies aren't taking the time to do that, and it's very much to their detriment.
Really?
And the difference of you, I don't know, knowing logic maybe, or thinking that way.
Thanks, Dr. Yeah.
Yeah, you step out of the circle and say, no, actually, we should stop here and fix this, right?
That's really interesting, because I don't think it's a personality trait. I think I see it in a lot of liberal arts grads, right? That we're kind of delusional, that we think we can learn anything, right? And last year was a great example of that, and then into this year as well. And you just do have to take a step back and think about it. So that's great to hear. That makes me feel really great that we're doing the right thing.
You have my admiration, my respect. This is impressive. The other side, and I don't want to dominate too much the discussion, but I'm so super stimulated and interested in what you're doing. So when you're going around, and you're not just looking for roofing companies, you look for any kind of companies, but these are always physical production or service companies, right?
Basic businesses, Main Street businesses.
Garage doors, pool strategy. Maintenance, HVAC. I mean, the fascinating thing
Plumbers,
too is
electricians.
Yeah, there's a moment for this. I mean, every day I think I have an email from some sort of PE group in my inbox, wanting to have a conversation. And I don't think that's because we're doing anything, remarkably public or successful, like in an outward facing way. But I think the point is, I think the market is dictating that there's a very heavy appetite for these sorts of businesses, for a lot of good reasons. I mean, there's recession kind of proofness, right? If your roof is leaking or damaged, you need to replace it. And it's not a luxury item, it's a necessity. So I think that these businesses, they're boring but beautiful, right? And I think that the multiples too in the marketplace right now are just crazy. I mean, the run on HVAC seems to be expiring a little bit, but keeping a pulse on this has been fascinating. It's much higher and gets me excited, because when we started this, I don't think we knew anything about this, but we knew nothing. But as we've learned and explored this marketplace in particular, it really strengthened, I think, Matt's thesis that he really is the visionary. I don't know if you guys know the Strengths Finder, but he is very much that. And I'm a really good tenacious integrator, and can step back and enjoy being a visionary when I don't have too much to do, which is never. So, but I really think that he was onto something when, he had this kind of, really, it was a dream, 4.5 years ago, or no, I guess it would be 5 years ago now. And I think the market has kind of showed up in parallel.
Yeah, I think the big thing was it wasn't my thesis. It was super smart guys like yourself, Andreas, and you, Rebecca, that are doing the research and everything. And I just Googled it. And really, I got really into Stanford Search
Google
Fund
started
Bible.
our company. That's the moral of the story. Yeah.
The Stanford Search Fund Bible. There's stuff in there. It's called something different now because they're not allowed to call things the search fund, use the word Bible. But there's so much useful information in that research that of how to distinguish when working with partners, and identify whose job is where, right? And that's a huge thing for Liz and I, right, is like my biggest difficulty as like a natural like type A choleric sanguine, right, is to lead from the front and to go, 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 go. Liz is also that way, right? And so if we're not careful, it could be like two grizzly bears, right? And you don't want to show that. You don't want to do that in front of people, right? And you don't want to do that yourselves. And so I think that was really integral in how Liz and I viewed like her being the CEO and like being honest and humble, like, right? Because of course I'd love to be the CEO, but that wasn't my skill set and isn't my skill set, right? I'm a great supporter and galvanizer, right? And Liz, she said, is a tenacious integrator. And I think all of that information that's out there is just at your fingertips waiting for you to learn it, right? No one's going to say, hey, go learn it. You have to go do it yourself.
Yeah. So that actually is maybe a great note on which to close the segment, is to just begin talking a little bit about, so you talked about strength finders and you've hinted at how you discerned who's the CEO in this company, and say a little bit, if you would, more about what it took for you to figure out who's gonna have which role. And also, I know you have kids, and you're very involved parents. How do you make these big businesses run and still attend to your kids in the way that is really important to you?
A lot of help and a lot of family. But it was a very easy decision about the CEO thing because Liz is emotionally disciplined, honestly. Like that's that's the difference, right? If I'm not careful, I could be a bit of a face melter personality. And Liz is extremely disciplined. She learned it from her mom and dad. And I think that's a huge strength of hers. And Liz is just remarkable in everything that she does. But I'll let you go now, Liz.
No, I think, I think too, there's something to be said here for we all really work in tandem. And there's been very few times where I feel like I've had to make a decision that stepped out of sync with my team. Because I think we have a really high sense of working together to get to a decision collaboratively. And I actually think that's a bit of the feminine genius that I've loved watching in a very male dominated company. I think that there's something diffusing sometimes about the presence of again, just that feminine genius being able to kind of work through things without and again, I feel like funny talking even this is like my disclaimer on this whole podcast. If I sent this to my team, they'd laugh and be like, Liz is so imperfect, because they're right. Like, I don't do any of this perfectly. So if you're listening to this, I want you to know that you don't have to either. You just have to do your best. Like, we're all trying to be saints, and all saints were sinners. But to that end, I think that I rely very heavily on my leadership team for advice, because they're there for a reason. But at the end of the day, it's my job to call the ball. But I think that's one of my strengths is Pat Lencioni's strength test is one of our working genius, I think is what it's called. That's been our favorite test as a company. I have that chart on my pin board at work. And if I am struggling with one of my, team, I will often look at that and remember, that's why they're frustrated with this. Because, their skill is galvanizing, and it's not mine. Mine's tenacity. They want to make sure we're all excited about it before we move forward. And we're all kind of on the same page, but mine is tenacity. That's my number one. My second is discernment. And so I can be a bit of a bull, like, okay, let's just go. We've made the decision. We're going to get this done, and we're going to get it done today. So I think it's we're still living and learning on that one, but it really is a joy to all work in tandem together.
I think that is a good way to break. Matt, Elizabeth, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
And just before we go, if people want to learn more about, for example, your training programs, or if they want to, I don't know, hire Rose Roofing for a roof, how do they get in contact with you?
Our website is probably best. It's rose-roofing.com.
Good. As always, you're going to find those resources linked in the show notes, and we thank you again.
Wonderful. That's all the time we have today, friends. Thank you for joining us. We're so grateful for your support. And until next time, we hope you prosper.